It's time for Michigan's newest sports talk show, Mitten Madness.
And here he goes. Defense win championship.
Michigan sports talk from here in Battle Creek. The latest stories, the biggest games, all across the Mitten State.
That's not something to play with.
Streaming live and on demand on the 95.3 WBCK app. Here are your hosts, Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes.
Good morning on this beautiful Saturday morning. It is Mitten Madness. And as most of you heard last week, Jacob is no longer with us here at Town Square Media, which means I am rocking Mitten Madness all alone for the time being. If we're able to get this thing sold, then Jacob will be back in here as he'll be getting paid to be here and will be rejoining us. If not, maybe I'll find someone new, or maybe I will be rocking all alone. Either way, the Michigan sports don't stop. The madness will continue, and I will keep you updated on all of the sports happenings that are happening right here in the Mitten. Today, we're going to be diving into plenty happening with the Tigers as they're in the heat of their early season. And then we'll also dive into the NFL schedule, what that looks like for the Lions and some of the other NFC North opponents, and maybe some predictions as well. And lastly, we'll also be looking at those NCAA Michigan State football schedules and kind of putting together what we think their seasons will look like. But just because Jacob isn't here doesn't mean things will change. I am still going to let you know how I'm doing. I'm doing pretty good. Lacrosse season for high school ball is over. We did lose our playoff game, but I had a lot of fun interacting with the crowd. The crowd was chirping me left and right. Their parents were not great, so I kind of had to go back and forth with them, say a few words to get them off my back. But my boys had a lot of fun. Me and my coaching staff had fun. Another great year for the high school squad. And Coach Da'Jzon gets 2 weeks off before I'm back at it for summer ball. I'm just excited to, be able to have the life that I live and enjoy it. This weekend is going to be fun. Tons of sports on the docket. College lacrosse is in the middle of the playoffs. Pro season is going to start for outdoor. The indoor lacrosse season is in playoffs. The Tigers are playing well. I am just excited. Speaking of the Tigers, when we look at what they did earlier this week, they took on the Red Sox in the early week, where they took them down 14-2 on Monday, giving Job another win. He's 3-0 so far on the year with a 4.32 ERA. 18 hits for the Tigers in that game as they stretched their record to 15-5 at home. They then won the game again on Tuesday, 10-9 over the Red Sox, giving Brisky a win. He's 1-1 on the year with a 7.11 ERA. Javi Baez hits a pair of 3-run homers in this game, including one of the 11th to walk it off and give the Tigers the victory. 28-15 after this game, 16-5 at Comerica Park. And then they swept the Red Sox on Wednesday, 6-5. Justin Henry Malloy hits a single to walk it off for the Tigers in the 9th inning. They're 17-5 at home, 29-15 on the year, which we'll get into the standings and the MLB in just a second as Mr. Vest picks up his third win of the year. He's 3-0 as well. He's got a 1.80 ERA. Just 10 hits for the Tigers in this game as they were able to beat out the Red Sox, who did give up one earned run. They're 22-23 on the year, 11-14 on the road are the White Sox. The Tigers had the day off on Thursday. Friday, they're going to take on the Blue Jays. As you guys know, I record Friday during the day, so they have not yet played the Blue Jays. But both of them have interesting records. Blue Jays 21-22 on the year. They're 12-10 at home, while the Tigers are 12-10 on the road. Flaherty will be on the mound tonight. 4.61 ERA, 1-5 on the year for him. He'll take off against Francis, 5.40 ERA, who's 2-5 on the year. Later tonight, on Saturday, as you guys are listening to this, Olsen will, with a 4-3 record of 3.38 ERA, will take the mound in the second game of the series. 3:07 p.m. first pitch. It is undecided who he will be pitching against for the Blue Jays. They wrap that series on up Sunday. Job will be back on the mound for the Tigers. Barrios, who's 1-1, 4.33 ERA, will be on the mound for the Blue Jays. It's a 1:37 p.m. first pitch. No telling where those games will be casted for streaming purposes or watching on TV, but they are all happening at Rogers Center in Toronto, Ontario. The Tigers will then have another series starting again early week. They'll still be on the road, this time traveling to the Cardinals, who are 15-6 at home. Montero will be on the mound for the Tigers in that first game. 1-1 on the year, 4.68 ERA. 4-1 on the year, 4.50 ERA for Mr. Gray, who will be on the mound for the Cardinals in that first game. Second game, we get Mr. Skubal back on the mound, 2.67 ERA, 4-2 on the year for the ace. Fetty, 3-3, 3.44 ERA, is going to be on the mound for the Cardinals. And then in that game 3, Flaherty is going to be back on the mound again. He will be taking on Palante, who is 3-2 on the year, 4.36 ERA. They're going to get no days off. They're going right into a home series against the Guardians on next Thursday, where the Tigers, once again, 17-5 at home. Olsen will be on the mound. He'll go against Ortiz, who's 2-4 on the year, 4.78 ERA. The Guardians are undecided who will pitch their second game, while Job will be on the mound for the Tigers. And the third game of the series happening on Saturday of next week. Montero will be on the mound going against Allen, who is 2-2, 3.70 ERA. Now let's talk about the standings and where that puts the Tigers this year. They're 29-15. That puts them very near the top of the American League. Actually, they are at the top of the American League. The Tigers are the number one team, number one seed in the American League at 29-15. They're 3.5 games ahead of the Yankees and the Guardians, who are both 25-18. Right behind them sits the Royals at 25-20, and then the Mariners get the top 5 in the AL at 23-19. On the NL side, matching the Dodgers, the Tigers, 29-15. They're both fighting for the number one spot in the MLB. Just one game behind them, the Padres at 27-15. The New York Mets are 28-16, also one game behind. Philadelphia Phillies, 25-18, right beside the Cubs, who are 26-19. That rounds out the top 5 for the NL. When you look at the division, the AL Central, the Tigers comfortably leading 3.5 games over the Guardians, another 4.5 over the Royals. They're a whole 5 games ahead of the Twins, who are 24-20. And then, of course, the White Sox sitting at the bottom of the AL Central at 14-31, 15.5 games behind the Tigers. The Tigers have won 8 of their last 10. That includes a sweep over the Rockies and the Red Sox, but they did lose a series to the Rangers in that time. When we look at some of the leaders for this Tigers team, Kerry Carpenter sitting at 295 for a batting average. He has an OBP, of 325, a slugging percentage of 534. Spencer Torkelson is leading the team, though, in home runs, as he has 11, but he's only batting at a .240 average with 34 RBIs, which he leads the team in those as well. Get over to the pitching side of things. Casey Mize leading the front of this pack for wins on the year. He has a 2.53 ERA, 35 strikeouts, and he's got 6 wins on the year. Leading both the ERA and the strikeout categories, it's the ace of the squad, Tariq Skubal. He's got 4 wins on the year with a 2.67 ERA and 71 strikeouts. The thing about this team is they have finally started to put it together. The bats are rolling right alongside the pitching. When you look at last year, the pitching was phenomenal. Tariq Skubal won the AL Cy Young. And then you look at who was behind him. Flaherty was great for most of the year. Job was okay. Casey Mize had his times when he wasn't injured, and they were able to fight themselves into the playoffs. We're talking about a totally different Tigers team right now. This Tigers team is standing not only at the top of the AL Central, they're standing at the top of not only the American League, but they're tied for the top of the MLB, the entire league. They're one of the 2 best teams in the entire league. We look back at the beginning of the season, they went toe-to-toe with the Los Angeles Dodgers, who was the other team that is tied with them at the top of the MLB. And me and Jacob said it while he was still here, that competing with the Dodgers is an amazing sign for the Tigers. It proves that they have started to put things together, that they have a squad that can be competitive. And you know, when Detroit is vibing, the people are behind it. People are excited for Tigers baseball. They're going and filling up the stands. Comerica Park has a new look, and it's all feeding into the ambiance. The Lions are good. People are excited for Lions to be coming back. The Pistons had a good year and made the playoffs. All of this feeds into each other. And when you have a group of guys who want to play in a city, who want to be successful for that city, who want to bring that city and that franchise to the top, you get the kind of things that we've seen out of the Tigers in recent years. They have been exciting the last 2 years. And what we see from them this year is them building on that, them staying focused, them getting in the off-season workouts, hitting the batting cages, hitting the gym, making sure their arms stay straight, taking care of their bodies and their mentalities, and they're ready to fight every single game. Like I said, the bats are there. When you look at most of their games this year, I mean, they put up 10 runs, 9 runs, 10 runs, 13 runs, 11 runs, 10 runs, 14 runs, 10 runs. And these are some great teams. The Angels, the Red Sox, the Orioles, the Astros, that they've put up 6, 7, 8 runs against. That's where we've always wanted to see this Tigers team be, and that's where they are right now. We'll probably pick a Tigers series later on in the show when we get into the picks because, well, I got to fill up this time somehow. But before we do that, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be diving in on the NFL schedule, what that means for Lions, Tigers, and the rest of the NFC North. We'll be back with more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Back with another segment here on Mitten Madness. It's time for us to talk about the NFL. With the schedule release coming out, there is plenty of talk about how these teams are going to compete this year. We'll dive into the schedule not only for the Detroit Lions, but we'll look at the rest of the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears, and the Minnesota Vikings to see who we think may win the division, how things will play out, who will be in the playoffs, and what things will look like moving forward. So diving right into this whole thing, we'll start with the Lions schedule first. For 2025, they will open up on September 7th against the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau, 4:25 on CBS. The next week, 9:14, 1 p.m. on Fox, they'll play the Bears. On September 22nd, 8:15 p.m., I believe that's a Monday, on ABC, they'll take on the Ravens. 9:28, 1 p.m. Fox, they'll take on the Browns. That's a home game. They also home against the Bears, on the road against the Ravens. October 5th, 4:25 p.m. on Fox, they'll be at the Bengals. October 12th, 8:20 p.m. NBC, Sunday Night Football. They'll be taking on the Chiefs in Arrowhead. October 20th, 7 p.m. ABC, I think another Monday night game. They'll be taking on the Buccaneers at home. Another home game for them on November 2nd at 1 p.m. On Fox. This one is going to be against the Vikings. Then they'll go on the road November 9th, 4:25 p.m. on Fox against the Commanders. 11:16, 8:20 p.m. NBC, Sunday Night Football again in November 16th against the Eagles on the road. November 23rd, they'll take on the Giants at home, 1 p.m. on Fox. They will host the Packers for Thanksgiving, 1 p.m. on Fox. And then also on December 4th, 8:15 p.m., I believe that's a Thursday night game, they'll take on the Cowboys. December 14th, 4:25 on Fox, they'll take on the Rams in L.A. On December 21st, 4:25 p.m., CBS, they will take on the Steelers at home. They will go on the road on Christmas at 4:30 p.m. to take on the Vikings. And then they will be on the road at the Bears to close out the season to be TBD. I think it sucks that the Packers have to open the season up with the Lions. I think the Lions, it sucks that they have to open the season with the Packers. Opening the season with divisional rivals sucks. I think you should be able to get your feet wet, get things under you, decide what your team is really going to look out before you have to play divisional football. But with that being said, the Lions open up with 2 divisional games. They have the Packers, and then the very following week, they have the Bears before they have to take on the Ravens in week 3, which is going to be extremely tough for them. The Ravens have always been a tough squad for them. The last time they played the Ravens, they lost by 6 in what was an extremely good game. It's just going to be tough for them if they happen to lose one or both of those games to open the year against division rivals. Going on the road 0-2 is a tough way to start. But let me start by saying I don't think that the Lions lose to the Bears. I think there's a possibility they lose to the Packers. I think anything could happen in that game. That's going to be 2 very good teams, 2 very good offenses fighting to see who's going to get the last punch in. While the Bears, I think, are still a step behind both of those teams. The Lions should be successful against the Bears, pitting them in a 2-0 battle to see who remains undefeated against the Ravens. Maybe a 1-1 and a chance for them to push to 2-1. I don't think they have any problems with the Browns, the Bengals. I think the Chiefs will be another good game. They were able to beat the Chiefs last year. Are they able to do that again? They have all the pieces to do so, but we know exactly how good the Chiefs are. And then we got the Buccaneers, who they'll be on the road to. The Lions did lose to the Buccaneers last year. That will be another very good game. But as we know for the Lions, their schedule is going to be a little bit tougher because as a divisional winner, they have to play other divisional winners as well, which is why they have the Buccaneers back on their schedule. And then they get another conference game against the Vikings just to start November. Then they got a couple playoff teams in a row with the Commanders and Eagles. I think they best the Giants. They're going to split with the Packers this year. They'll best the Cowboys. The Rams will be a close game. Steelers will be an interesting game as well because we don't know what we're getting with the Steelers. Their quarterback situation is weird, and a lot of pieces on their team are in limbo. Jacob would hate to hear me say that, but guess what? He ain't here to say nothing about it, so I'm going to spew all the nonsense I want. And then they close out with the Vikings and Bears, both on the road to end their season. Their 2 preseason games, they will take on the Chargers on July 31st. And then on August 8th, they'll take on the Falcons. They're at the Falcons while they're hosting the Chargers. If you ask me, I'm looking at this roster or the schedule. I'm only seeing 3 to 4 losses for the Lions. They should win the NFC North again, and they should be firmly back in the playoffs. They may even have another bye, as there's a possibility that they win the NFC all right, and then they're hosting all playoff games. That's something to keep in mind. But if we're going to keep it pushing and talk about the rest of the NFC North, let's get over to my favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. As we just said, they open a year on September 7th with the Lions at home. They'll also have a second home game on the 11th, 8:15. That's a Thursday against the Commanders. They'll then get some days off. They'll play again on September 21st, 1 p.m. on Fox against the Browns on the road. They'll be on the road for Sunday Night Football on September 28th in Jerry's World, a.k.a. Lambeau 2, where they'll take on the Cowboys. And then October 12th, 4:25 p.m. CBS, they'll be home against the Bengals. They'll be on the road against the Cardinals on October 19th at 4:25 p.m. on Fox. They'll be on the road against the Steelers, 10:26, 8:20 for Sunday Night Football on NBC. And then they will host the Panthers on November 2nd, 1 p.m. On Fox. They'll host the Eagles on November 10th, 8:15 p.m. ABC. I believe that is a Monday night game. They'll be at the New York Giants on the 16th of November, 1 p.m. on Fox. They'll host the Vikings on November 23rd, 1 p.m. Fox. They'll visit the Lions for Thanksgiving, 1 p.m. Fox. They'll host the Bears because we hate the Bears, 1 p.m. Fox on December 7th. December 14th, they'll go to the Broncos, 4:25 p.m. CBS. They will host the Bears on Fox as the time is to be announced. They'll go to the Bears. They'll be on the road for that game. And then they'll host the Ravens for a TBD on the time and streaming, along with the Vikings, where they'll be on the road. That's a TBD for both date, time, and where it will be played. I'm looking at this schedule. I also see the Packers making it back to the playoffs. I think they do have a few more losses than the Lions. I think that they split with the Lions and the Vikings, but I do think that they beat the Bears in both of those games, and they'll have to squeeze out some other tough competition. I think they handled the Browns, the Bengals, the Cowboys. The Steelers will be interesting. The Panthers should be another win. The Broncos will be an interesting game as well. So the Packers have their hands full in their schedule as well. And the NFC North will be uberly fun to watch this year. As we've made it through the Packers schedule, let's talk about the Vikings. They open up against the Bears on the 8th, Monday Night Football, 8:15 on ABC. Then there'll be September 14th, 8:20 p.m., NBC, Sunday Night Football against the Falcons, 1 p.m. on the 21st against the Bengals. They'll be hosting both the Falcons and Bengals. That one's going to be on CBS. The Steelers, 9:30 a.m., overseas on the 28th on NFL Network. They also have another game on the 5th of October, 9:30 a.m. overseas against the Browns on NFL Network. Fox, 1 p.m. on October 19th. They'll be hosting the Eagles. They'll go on the road against the Chargers on 10/23, 8:15 p.m. I believe that is a Thursday night game. They'll be at the Lions on November 2nd, 1 p.m. Fox. They'll host the Ravens on the 9th of November, 1 p.m. Fox. They will then go host the Bears as well on November 16th, 1 p.m. Fox. They'll go on the road to the Packers on November 23rd, 1 p.m. Fox. And then they will also go on the road on November 30th, 4:05 p.m. Fox against the Seahawks. Host the Commanders on December 7th at 1 p.m. Fox. The Cowboys, they'll go on the road to face them 8:20 p.m. NBC on a Sunday Night Football for December 14th. And then they also will go on the road against the Giants on December 21st, 1 p.m. Fox. They'll be hosting the Lions for Christmas, 4:30 p.m. And then they are hosting the Packers for the last game of the year. They are TBD on time, streaming, and date. That's it for the Vikings. I see them having a pretty solid year. I think they come in third in the NFC North. I'm not sure if they will make the playoffs. It will be an interesting win, but I mean, the Giants and Cowboys are both winnable for them. The Seahawks, another winnable game. I think they'll beat the Bears or probably split with everybody in the division. The Browns should be a win for them, and so should the Bengals. The Falcons will be interesting for them as well. We'll quickly go through the last team in the NFC North because who cares about the Bears? They have the Vikings to open things up, 8:15 ABC, Monday Night Football. Then they'll go to the Lions on the 14th, 1 p.m. on Fox. Cowboys coming into Soldier Field, 4:25 p.m. Fox on the 21st of September. They'll be at the Raiders on the 28th of September, 4:25 p.m. on CBS. At the Commanders, October 13th, 8:15 p.m. ABC. And then they have that's Monday Night Football, October 19th, 1 p.m. against Fox. They'll be hosting the Saints. And then October 26th, 1 p.m. on CBS. They'll be at the Ravens. November 2nd, 1 p.m. CBS. They'll be at the Bengals. November 9th, they'll be hosting the Giants, 1 p.m. on Fox. They'll be at the Vikings on the 16th of November, 1 p.m. Fox. They will be hosting the Steelers November 23rd, 1 p.m. CBS. They'll be at the Eagles on November 28th at 3 p.m. They'll be at the Packers on December 7th, 1 p.m. on Fox. December 14th, 1 p.m. on Fox. We'll have the Browns in town. They'll have the Packers in town, TBD on Fox for both the time and date. 49ers, 12:28, 8:20 p.m. NBC, Sunday Night Football. They'll be at the 49ers for that. They will host the Lions last game of the year, TBD at the moment. I don't see the Bears doing much this year. That's the NFC North schedules. We'll be back in the next segment talking college football schedules as we get more Mitten Madness to you on 95.3 WBCK.
Detroit sports fans, Wolverines and Spartans alike. This is your sports show, Mitten Madness, with Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes on 95.3 WBCK.
Welcome back to Mitten Madness here on 95.3 WBCK. It's time for us to dive into the college realm. We're talking more football as it is right around the corner. Summer's basically here, so you know football is drumming in our bloodlines. We've got some schedules for our premier college programs here in the state of Michigan. We'll take a look at both Michigan and Michigan State. I'll start with little brother because, you know, as a Michigan fan, we always like to leave the best for last. So we'll talk about Michigan State and what we're expecting to see from them in the upcoming year. They start the year with Western Michigan, then they're going to play Boston College again, and then Youngstown State. All of those are home games for the Spartans. They'll start Big Ten play on the road, taking on USC. Then they'll be on the road for Nebraska. They'll come home to take on UCLA, and then they will be on the road for Indiana. They'll come back home to take on Michigan. They'll be on the road to take on Minnesota. They'll come back home to take on Penn State. They'll be on the road to take on Iowa, and then they'll end the year at home against Maryland. If I'm not mistaken, the Penn State game will be played at Ford Field, but it might be the Maryland game. One of their games toward the end of the year will be played at Ford Field instead of Spartan Stadium. At the moment, they do not have any times or dates up for any of the Michigan State games. I believe it is the same for the Michigan games as well. But when we're looking at how this schedule is set up for the Spartans, there is some possible success on the board for them here. I do think that even though they've had some struggles, they're starting to put things together with Jonathan Smith at the helm. He's started to do well recruiting and bringing in guys in the transfer portal, and they should make a step up this year. I think starting with Western Michigan is a great place to start. Western will come out and give them a game. I don't think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I do think Michigan State will handle the game, have control of the game, and they will win the game, which gets them off to a good start. Now, they do have to go in and play Boston College. They don't have Thomas Castellanos like they did in the previous years, but they're still a very good team. They're still in the ACC. They're still going to have athletes that are going to push Michigan State to the brink. If Michigan State is able to go in with Aiden Childs and win against Boston College this time, even though they came up very close last year, they're starting the year 2-0. And I'm going to tell you right now, Youngstown State is not beating Michigan State. Youngstown State is not beating Michigan State in football. So if they start the year 3-0, anything could happen. We saw USC struggle in their first year in the Big Ten this year. Do I think it's going to be the same this year? No. I think that USC will be much better than they were last year. I do think that USC will compete, and I do think USC will give lots of people games. I do believe that USC beat Michigan State last year when they played each other, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But Michigan State is going to have to win close games like that. Nebraska will be another good game for them. UCLA, if they're able to complete that West Side sweep of the Big Ten, that would be huge for them. And those are two very winnable games. Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Penn State is a tough run. A tough run. And that's where we'll find out where this Michigan State team is and how they are truly built and how they're going to be made. Indiana, tough. Made the playoff last year, going to be looking to make a push again. The atmosphere is there. The culture is set. The foundation is set. And they're ready to run through a brick wall. Not just for the coach, but just in general. So that's going to be a hard-fought game where Michigan State comes out with a win. Things get spicy, especially with them playing Michigan the very next week at home. They could ride that momentum into a little bit of a win streak. Minnesota is going to be on the down. That's a team that Michigan State can compete with. It's a team that they can beat. Penn State, I don't think they stand a chance. Maybe they get up because they're playing in Ford Field, I believe. That might help them out a little bit, but that's going to be a tough game. And then they end out with Iowa and Maryland, both teams that Michigan State can win against. Can they lose against both of them? Absolutely. But when you look at what's happening and how their season is constructed, with the way it's shaped out, there's multiple chances for them to go on multiple winning streaks where that momentum is just carrying for them and they feel confident in themselves and what they have around them. But with that being said, I don't think Michigan State makes the playoffs at all, and I do think it will be close for them to even get into a bowl game. I do think that there are very much 6 possible wins, maybe even 7 here, but they still have to go out and play the games and win them. So that's only something that we'll find out in the intermediate time. But for now, I think Michigan State has a fairly simple schedule on their hands if they go out and handle business. Now, for the best football team in the state, for the real victors around here, Michigan, the Wolverines have quite the schedule in front of them. As we know, their head coach, Sharon Moore, is going to be suspended for 2 of these games. That will be weeks 3 and 4, where they take on Central Michigan and Nebraska. So that's going to throw a hamper in things, which we'll talk about in just a second. But looking at the rest of their schedule, New Mexico is where they will open things, hosting them. Then they'll go on the road to take on Oklahoma, and probably the second biggest game of the year for them. Then they'll be home for Central Michigan and on the road for Nebraska. Those are the two games Sharon Moore will not be coaching. They'll host Wisconsin, go on the road for USC, which might be a tough game for them because they were home for that game last year, and I think that played a part in allowing them to stay in that game and be successful and come out on top. So we'll see if they're able to win that game while on the West Coast. And then they'll look to get some revenge on Washington, who beat them last year, as Washington comes to the Big House. Michigan State is next on the schedule for them after Washington, which they'll be going up to Spartan Stadium. They'll take on Purdue at home, and then they'll have Northwestern and Maryland both on the road in back-to-back weeks before ending the season out with the game at home against Ohio State. I absolutely hate Ohio State, and I hope Michigan wins the game once again this year. But when you look at how this is set up as well, New Mexico is a great game for them to open up with, find out exactly who they are, maybe run the score up a little bit, and truly find their identity and how things will work for them this year with a lot of new pieces in the line, offensive line, new running backs, quarterbacks, etc., wide receivers, corners. It's going to be a lot to find out who is going to show up and who isn't. And then they'll go on to take Oklahoma down south. They'll be on the road for that game. That is Sharon Moore's alma mater, so he's pumped up for that game. Part of the reason why he's not suspended for that game, and he's looking to lead his new team to success over the team that once meant much more to him than the one that he coaches. So that'll be an exciting game to see. The winner of that will definitely have a season on their hands and may be able to make a push in their conference with all the good momentum. Then they get to come back home and settle things in with a game against Central Michigan, which should be no real trouble for the Wolverines before they get into conference play. Nebraska's a team with Dylan Raiola that is going to give absolutely everybody a run, but I'm not sure if that offense is good enough for this Michigan defense. The defense will carry this Michigan team this year. That is what will be the bread and butter for them, is how well they're able to stop other teams and give their offense good field position to try and stack momentum on top of. And as we mentioned, Wisconsin at home. Wisconsin hasn't been who they've been in the past. Doesn't mean Michigan should sleep on them, but I see Michigan for sure being able to win that Wisconsin game. USC on the road will be tough. We all know what it's like playing in the Coliseum over there. It's going to be a good game. Michigan definitely could come out on top, but being on the road makes this much tougher of a game than what it was the year before. Washington is basically all fury. They want to see Washington go down after losing to them in the rematch of the national championship game last year. I don't think anything has to be said about Michigan State. They're little brother. They're not as good. I think Michigan comes out on top for the sixth consecutive year in that rivalry. Are we ever worried about Purdue? I don't think so. Northwestern has never been a concern for Michigan in football either. That game will be played at Wrigley Field, which will be awesome. I may try and snag tickets to that game because that is just next level excitement when it comes to football. And of course, they'll have Maryland on the road, which gave them a game last year. Michigan was able to squeak out, or maybe 2 years ago it was, where they were able to squeak out a win against Maryland. And Maryland always keeps things close, but when it comes to football, they're just not quite that school. But the biggest game of the year and the game that always decides so much is the game. That game is going down end of the year against Ohio State in the Big House this year. So we know how exciting that game gets. We know the energy that comes into that game, and we know how much it means. It could be the difference between a spot in the Big Ten championship / the college football playoff. And on the outside looking in both of those scenarios, or just one of those scenarios, in so many different things, I think both teams have a chance to be extremely successful this year. I think Michigan makes a bowl game no matter what, but I think the playoffs are up for grabs. Michigan State has plenty more work to do. That's what we got going for college. We're going to get into our picks soon, but of course, we have more Mitten Madness for you coming up on 95.3 WBCK.
95.3 WBCK.
Back to Mitten Madness here on 95.3 WBCK. It is time for us to get into the picks, but before we do that, yes, Jacob is no longer here, so that does mean I'll be doing picks solo for the time being. We'll try and figure out something else here to make this a little more exciting. But what I do know is for now, you can listen to the games that we do, make your own picks, and then get into the BCK app and let us know how you did on your picks and see if you're able to beat me in some picks. Giving you the rundown of our last pick segment between me and Jacob and who left off as the winner. Last week, I came in at 41-31. Jacob was 39-33, a couple games behind me. I came in at 46-32 last week. So that gave us a little extra fun heading into this week, which obviously I was able to come out on top as well. So that means that Jacob owes me some more lunch. I don't know when it will be that he gets a chance to give me lunch, but he will be able to do so. I've got 6 more games on the list. Going to try and get through these the best way I know possible, give you some insight, and see if I'm able to pick some great winners. We will start in none other than the NBA, because why not? Coming up on Sunday, May 18th, 3:30 p.m. on ABC at the Paycom Center in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. We have Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals between the Denver Nuggets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. When we look at this game, as we know, the series is tied 3-3. We look at how it broke down. The Nuggets won Game 1 by 2, and then the Thunder absolutely smacked them around in Game 2. The Nuggets win Game 3 by 9 points. And then the Thunder win Game 4 by 5. The Thunder win Game 5 by 7. And the Nuggets won Game 6 by 12. Game 7 is going to be a doozy. 120 points apiece for each of these teams. They're grabbing just about 45 rebounds apiece. The OKC only averages 27 assists, while Denver averages 31. Denver 6-4 in their last 10. OKC 7-3. It's kind of interesting to see how things are going to work out here. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over 32 points per game per year. Jokic right behind him at 30 points per game this year. He also has 12.7 rebounds and 10.2 assists, averaging a triple-double for the year. Isaiah Hartenstein averaging 10.7 rebounds on the year. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has 6.4 assists. When we're looking at how this goes, this Game 7 is going to be interesting. The line opened up at a 7.5-point favorite for OKC. It remains there. The over-under line, 211.5. It has since gone up to 213.5. Money line is plus 250 for the Nuggets. I am going to have to lean on the side of caution here. I'm going to go with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Thunder. This is a home game for the Thunder. That crowd has always gotten behind them. They don't have much in Oklahoma City as far as professional sports, so they've always loved having the Thunder there. The team is behind them, and you see the energy that is there. I'm really excited for this to come out and be an exciting game, but I do think the Thunder will win, and I do think that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will have a MVP-type game, which is going to get us into another happening into the weekend. This time, we're talking all UFC. We got another fight night going down May 17th, tonight. UFC Apex in Las Vegas. The main event is a welterweight fight. It's going to be Gilbert Burns, who's 22-8. He's plus 400 on the betting cards, 5'10" at the height, 170 in pounds. 38 on the waist, 71-inch reach, and an orthodox fighting stance, taking on Michael Morales, who's 17-0. He stands 6 foot, 170 pounds, 25 years old, 79-inch reach, and he's also an orthodox fighter. He's negative 600 on the cards. The prelims start at 4 p.m. for this. 7 p.m. is the main card. You can find all of this on ESPN Plus. I think this one is very simple for me. It's not as simple as I'm going to make it sound, because Brazilians are great at not only Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but they're just great at MMA in general. They're great fighters. They know how to stand up and box with anyone, but if you dare go down to the ground with them, you're going to have a tough time. If this goes to the ground, I don't know that Michael Morales has a chance in this fight, but I do think Gilbert Burns will be able to handle things on the ground. But Michael Morales, 17-0, is nothing to sneeze at. The man is a beast. You saw his physical attributes and how things are weighing out. So there's zero reason to believe that the Ecuadorian won't be able to come in and fight toe-to-toe with the Brazilian. Something really sticks out to me, though. He has a 2-inch height advantage. He also has a 8-inch reach advantage, and he has a 13-year age advantage in terms of being younger. I don't think that has much to do, but in this case, fighting, stamina, all those things matter. I think this welterweight main event is going to go into the hands of Michael Morales, and Gilbert Burns will give up a great fight, and it will be fun to watch, but he simply just does not have enough. Going into next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, our Tigers are taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. This is all happening at Busch Stadium in St. Louis, Missouri. Game 1 is on Monday, 7:45 p.m. First pitch. Montero on the mound for the Tigers against Gray for the Cardinals. And then Tuesday, you got Skubal stepping on the mound for the Tigers against Fetty for the Cardinals. 7:45 p.m. first pitch for that game as well. Then a 1:15 p.m. pitch on Wednesday where Flaherty will take on Palante to wrap up the series. I think Montero's a little scary for me. It's a possible loss, but when you got Skubal and Flaherty backing him up, if Montero's able to win one, I don't see any situation where the Tigers don't win the series. So I'm going to take the Tigers to do something they haven't done a lot this year, and that's win on the road. It's going to be tough because the Cardinals are 15-6 at home. They're 24-20 on the year, so they're not a bad team. They've been putting the bat to the ball. They have great defense and pitching behind it as well. So what you should do is think that the Tigers are going to go out and continue to be all-stars. Duh. So I'm going to rock with the Tigers here as well, and I'm going to give them the series win over the Cardinals, which is now going to get us into our last little bit of action for picks and the weekend. The UFL has some games going on this weekend. We'll start on Saturday, 1 p.m. on Fox. This is the game of two teams who are absolutely battling it out to see where they will stand in the playoff standings this year. The Birmingham Stallions in the USFL will take on the St. Louis Battlehawks from the XFL. They're both standing 5-2 on the year. The Battlehawks do have 6 more points on the year than the Stallions, but they have given up 7 more points on the year than the Stallions. The Stallions have the second best plus-minus differential in the league at plus 37. They're on a 2-game win streak, but they are facing the Battlehawks, who are just 1 point behind in that differential and are on a 3-game win streak. I think this one is very tough to call. I think these are two very good teams, and I think this game will be absolute action. But I do have to lean on the side of my boy Jacob. He would be happy to hear me say this. I think that the Battlehawks are going to put it together. It's a home game for them, and we know how St. Louis feels about football. They were devastated when the Rams left, and they picked up that energy with the Battlehawks and have willed them to a UFL championship, and they're looking to do it again. I'm going to take the Battlehawks to go ahead and best the Stallions in what will be a good game. But don't get me wrong. I could very easily see the Stallions winning this game and throwing that right in my face. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Also happening 1 p.m. on Fox on Saturday, later today, you got the Panthers from our good old state of Michigan standing at 5-2, taking on the Roughnecks. The line for this game opens up with the Panthers as a 6.5-point favorite, 43.5 for the over-under. In that last game, the Battlehawks open as a 1.5-point favorites, 39.5 is the over-under line. When we look at the standings, the Panthers also 5-2 on the year, fighting for the top spot in the USFL. They do have the best differential in the league with a plus 46. They have 181 points for this year while only giving up 135. They're also on a 2-game win streak. They will take on the Houston Roughnecks, who are also in the USFL, who are 3-4 on the year. They are negative 16 in the differential department, and they're on a 1-game losing streak. So you know what that means. I like to go with trends. When we're looking at the scoring, we're looking at the records, we're looking at the most recent and what's happening. Houston hasn't been good the Panthers have. So I'd be crazy to go against the Panthers here in any kind of situation. I'm going to take the Michigan Panthers to win this one, even though it is on the road, and they may even cover that 6.5 point line that they're at. But I'm not trusting the over. If you're betting over-under lines, smash the under in the USFL. We've talked about this time and time again, but I do have the Panthers winning a game on the road and pushing their record to 6-2 on the year, which would put them in the first place if things go the way I feel, as the Stallions would lose and would be 5-3, while the Panthers are 6-2. That's going to get us into our last game of the weekend. The Arlington Renegades, who are 3-4. We'll be taking on the DC Defenders, who are 5-2. This game is Sunday, May 18th at noon on ABC, ESPN+. DC opens the game as 2.5 point favorites. The over-under line sitting at 42.5. Looking at the standings, DC has 163 points for a +6 differential. They're on a 1-game win streak, while Arlington 3-4 on the year, a +140, or they're 146 points for a +29 in the differential this year, but they are on a 3-game losing streak. This is an interesting game. As you can see, Arlington is able to score points. They don't have a problem putting points on the board. They're okay on defense, but they do still give up a handful of points. They're just not able to get wins. They're able to score. They can't get wins. And that's troublesome when you're thinking about any kind of team at any situation at any point. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not sure that Arlington will be able to best the DC Defenders, who have been one of the best teams in the league all year. It's a reason that they're 5-2 and fighting for the top XFL spot in the standing. So I'll rock with them as well, giving me the DC Defenders to win that game over the Renegades. Running down my picks for the week, I've got the Thunder over the Nuggets in Game 7. I have Michael Morales over Gilbert Burns in UFC Fight Night. I have the Tigers over the Cardinals in their midweek series, the Battlehawks over the Stallions, the Panthers over the Roughnecks, and the Defenders over the Renegades in the UFL. That's going to get us into the weekend. I'm taking over things here. We got nothing too exciting going on. All of our normals. You heard Community Matters this morning. You're going to have Coach's Corner / the Gardening Show. And then, of course, Mitten Madness coming 10 a.m. every weekend. Until next weekend, I'll see you all. We have more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK.
Join Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Miss the show or want to run it back? Stream Mitten Madness on demand on the WBCK app. Sponsored by AirwayCashForJunkCars.com.